and we are delighted to welcome for our first presentation our lovely Dr. Sofia Noori from EDCP and Dr. Jamilee Baroud and Kalisa Young from LDDI. Their presentation is titled Supporting Teachers to Address the Mental Health Needs of Newcomers from War Zones. With the world once again afflicted with war, atrocities, humanitarian crisis, and unprecedented human rights violations in this time and age, this is a timely presentation. The floor is yours, Noori, Jamilee, and Kalisa. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. I'm really excited to be here. I also want to thank the Expo organizers and the LDDI team for putting everything together yesterday as the start of this lovely event and continuing on today. It is with great pleasure to introduce to you our online manual for teachers. This resource is created because, as many of you know, we are having a growing number of refugees coming to Canada in the hundreds of thousands. And teachers are really struggling to help these students. And this resource is a place for us to go to as teachers and as educators, kind of like a one-stop shop place that we can gather and find information just as a starting point, and then take those resources and hopefully make them useful in our classrooms. And this is part of the knowledge mobilization project that was funded by the Jacqueline Farquhar endowment grant. And I'll be doing this presentation with Jamilee, and Kalisa will come in whenever she feels that she wants to. A little bit about the rationale behind this, as I mentioned, is to really help teachers because they play such a critical role in the student success, but they often lack the necessary training and resources to provide effective support. Oftentimes students deal with language barriers, cultural differences, and even the teaching methods that we have here. This manual has a lens of mental health associated with it. So it is really there to help teachers not only foster inclusivity and openness, but also help them deal with some of the traumatic responses that students might have due to war, due to living in refugee camps, due to escape. And there are 5 chapters in there, and my lovely colleague Jamilee will now walk you through that part.
Thank you, Sophia. Yeah, we wanted to showcase how we were able to kind of represent all of the content that Sophia had gathered into a resource that we hoped would be accessible to a diverse audience, not only in terms of who could access it, but then also how they could access it. So we originally had talked about whether we should represent this content on Canvas and talked about a multitude of different ways that we might be able to represent it. And at the end of the day, we had decided to house it on a tool called Articulate Rise 360. And Kalisa, please feel free to jump in at any moment in time, of course. And so what you're looking at right now is the final version to date, at least, although there is more content to come, of the content that is now ported onto Articulate. So quickly, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of, again, the why we chose Articulate, because of course there are many tools that we could have chosen from. But one of the very core reasons we chose Articulate is because it's an open educational resource, which means it can be shared as a link on different social media platforms and via email, and can also be embedded within Canvas and external websites without requiring viewers to create a username or password, which we hope would enhance our ability to share the resource both within UBC and beyond. I'm just going to switch screens here too. This is the editing view. Can you see that I've switched screens here quickly? Okay, great. And I just wanted to showcase quickly what I mean by that. So at the top right corner here, you can see there's a button called Share. And when you click Share, you can kind of preview the link here. And so this link you can copy and paste, and as I said, kind of embed it on any social media platform within Canvas catalog, via email. And so we really wanted to be able to have this kind of ease of distribution, both from us and then within the community as well. The second reason that we chose Articulate is because it automatically adapts content to be viewed on different devices like desktops, cell phones, or iPads, which would in turn increase the amount of viewers who could accessibly access the content. So just to give you another example, up here on the right-hand corner, if you press preview, you can see that you can preview how it might be accessed from the viewer from a desktop, but also from a tablet, the tablet landscape, a mobile portrait, and then mobile landscape as well, so that you can ensure that your content is being represented the way that you hope it to be represented, despite the device that viewers might be accessing it. We also hoped that this way might also serve to kind of bridge that digital divide. So if you don't have access to a desktop or laptop, you could still access it through your cell phone, and it would be equally accessible and useful to you. The third reason is that Articulate has a beautiful selection of stock photos. So I'm going to go back to edit just to kind of show you a little bit about that. So if we go to introduction, for instance, I'm just going to kind of add a plus button, not to give you a big tutorial, but just to kind of showcase some of the images that you might be able to incorporate. So if you chose image, for instance, we could just randomly select this one, and then we go to edit, and replace from content library. You can see here there's such a vast variety of images. And so if we put at the top here, I don't know, like even if we just tossed in the word kind of refugee, to see what comes up. I just wanted to showcase like the extensive content library that is housed within Articulate. So that was another reason. You don't have to pay extra. So if you already have your subscription, then these are all free to you, which we thought was a really fantastic feature. And lastly, Articulate has interactive activities and quizzes built into it. So if we go back to our resource here, I'm going to show you one of the sections of activities just to kind of highlight some of the ways that we integrated it. So one of the cool activities that you can use within Articulate is this case-based scenario feature. So you can select the human that you would like to kind of host the case-based scenario. The image in the background you can also select. And so if you like select continue, basically the idea is that the question would pop up as a case-based scenario. So in this case, we're speaking to educators, and the question is about how to effectively support refugee students. So an interesting thing here is if you select the incorrect answer, first of all, her emotions will change, which I think is a really fantastic feature as well, is that there are like hundreds of emotions you can kind of put onto these humans within this to kind of represent how you might be feeling about a particular response, which we thought was interesting. So the answer is wrong, she'll say no, and also give the explanation as to why it's wrong. And you can always try again for the correct answer. We'll get another response from her and then a yes with an explanation. So that's one feature, but there's also fill in the blank option. So we took this directly from the content that Sofia had input. And there's also multiple choice with multiple correct answers, which is also helpful. And we also have some matching activities that you can incorporate. And this is another fill in the blank here. So we just wanted to quickly justify, why we thought that Articulate was appropriate for the content Sofia had created, but also for the audience that she created. And I don't know, Kalisa, something else to add, but after that, we'll go back to Sofia just to dive a bit more into the content.
Thanks, Jamilee. Nothing more additional to add. It's just that we had a fantastic time working with Dr. Sofia through this process, and knowing how well it has been received and the feedback that has been given so far, and the far-reaching output that the hopes are that it transcends not only just British Columbia, but other provinces throughout Canada, because we can see the impact that refugees who are coming in, especially children, and the support that teachers need within the classroom. So that's just what I needed to add in as well.
Kalisa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure working with this team. Jamilee and Kalisa, Eduardo did a fantastic job of really taking the content and making it into this really interactive website. And I couldn't have asked for anything better. As you can see from what Jamilee is sharing on the screen, is that there are hyperlinks to all the both academic resources. So if the teacher looks at one of the resources and says, hey, like, I really want to learn more about this, they can easily click on the academic resource and be sent to that either website or wherever the academic resource is posted. There are videos that are embedded, there are images that are embedded that are mostly referenced, and they can watch, or they can go to that website in particular, because we can't put every single thing on this wonderful website, but we have to be able to give enough information, but also detailed enough that teachers can find use in this. If a teacher had chosen to, so one of the things, actually, before I get to that, if we go to chapter 4, this chapter is particularly important because I think it's important for educators to understand that this is not just a teacher's responsibility, even though the teachers are so influential in the lives of their students, that it is the entire school environment. So other people also play key roles in this, whether those are the administrators, the counselors, the welcome centers. These are all people who are involved in making a really great and hopefully safe environment for the students. And because this resource is specifically geared towards teachers, the final chapter, which is chapter 5, has the a resource bank. So the resources bank ultimately shows information not just from the curriculum, which is really important, but also storybooks, novels. And these storybooks, novels, and graphic novels, they're all written by Canadian authors. I really wanted it to be Canada-centric because I'm hoping that our teachers will be able to make use of these. There's also memoirs. These are novels or autobiographies written by refugees themselves. And the links are there too. So if you click on the link for me, please, you will see that it actually opens to local bookstores, our own bookstores here in Vancouver. And so we're supporting our local businesses that are run by racialized and Indigenous people, which is, again, another thing that was really important to me, to have these resources available to us. And then the other interesting bit about this is teachers can decide how they want to use these resources. There are video games. The video game was actually initially hosted on the UNHCR website. So it's a really interesting video game that is in multiple languages, that can actually give some insight and understanding, even to a young person who plays the game, about what the process of becoming a refugee is. What are the things that young people have to think about when they leave their home countries due to conflict and war. And in light of what is happening around the world, there are actually 30 conflicts, 30 wars going on, and Canada is hosting people from all over the world. And in British Columbia, the largest populations are coming from Afghanistan, Ukraine, Syria, Venezuela, and Eritrea. So we are going to be adding the last two countries onto our website. That is in process. But this is just, for me, an incredible place for teachers to come in, get the materials and information that they want in a very accessible, easy way. And it's extremely pleasing to the eye, but once you're in it, it's extremely engaging. So hopefully many people will be able to have access to this. Right now, the EDI individuals from all the districts in the Lower Mainland have access to this now. And this coming Friday, I will be workshopping this at Abbotsford. And at the end of the month, I will be going to Kelowna to workshop this for their human rights officers in the districts in that area. And then finally, I will also be going to Haida Gwaii in January to help the district there use this material for their teachers. So already we're having wonderful responses and to this website from people who have piloted it, and from teachers who are really in need of a place to go to get the materials to help these students. And I am deeply indebted to the LDDI team for doing such an incredible job with the material. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm just remembering now that we also have a link to the resource for anyone watching, and we have a link to the survey that we created as well, because it was really important to Sophia to make sure that she gathered all user feedback to ensure that the content was accessible and useful, and to make sure that she could continue to improve the resource over time. So we will pop those links into the chat if you are curious to complete the survey and or view the resource in and of itself. I will do that right now.
Thank you. That was a lovely presentation. Great to see the modules in action. Are there any questions? And you are welcome to unmute yourself to ask a question. So I'll have the first question. I'll begin with that, and then maybe Gabrielle has raised her hand. But we usually use Canvas as one of our platforms to host all of the content. So can you speak a little about your experience? And I know that, Articulate Rise provides more features in terms of interactivity, but were there any things in the Canvas that you would have preferred? And, it's always those pros and cons when you are using different platforms. There are certain features that are more useful in one, but you still miss a few in the other. So can you talk about those experience, Canvas versus Articulate Rise?
Sure. Sophia, do you want, maybe I'll pull up the Canvas catalog that we actually used, and we can speak a bit about how we kind of blended the worlds together. So I'll just pull that up give me one sec. Sorry, my multitasking skills are failing me. But I'm going to pull it up right now. Okay, so yeah, that's a great question, Faiza. And so we really did want to make sure that we were servicing like the UBC population in and of itself, but also one limitation that we had learned about Articulate is that in terms of analytics, they are quite limited. So although it is accessible and we can share it, it does not have the same analytics features that Canvas Catalog does, for instance. So our solution was kind of to bridge both worlds. And so what we did for Sophia was kind of house an introduction to the content in Canvas Catalog so that if we were sharing the resource within the UBC community, we could still log how many people were accessing it, how many were clicking the links, how often they were on the resource. So we had a bit more knowledge about who is accessing it, how often, and all the analytics that kind of Canvas comes along with. So what we did was, and in addition, so Eduardo, we must have a big shout out to Eduardo, who really did create this entire Canvas catalog course and created all of this media. So designed this kind of image at the top for advertising, and also filmed a video with Sophia and incorporated all these amazing graphics within, just to give a bit more of an overview of the resource itself, which we also have housed in Articulate, but is here as well. And then again, just quick resource information. So we did think it was important, of course, to have the land acknowledgement integrated, an overview of the resource as well. I'll just click on here. And we also wanted to include, of course, a bio of Sophia, which is next. And again, Eduardo, beautiful photography. And how to navigate the resource. So we have all of these kind of tidbits tied into Canvas Catalog, which we found. So we did find it still useful, I suppose, is my point. And we really wanted to bridge and blend both worlds. So again, Eduardo created this amazing list of kind of instructions so that there's ease of access for people, and then accessibility features as well. So although there are built-in accessibility features within Articulate, we wanted to ensure that people understood how to navigate Canvas Catalog accessibly, and also understand that within Articulate, you do have accessibility options as well. Sophia, I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah, no, that's great. The only thing I would add is even for people who don't have access, like for example, they don't have CWL to access the Canvas, Eduardo also did an incredible job of giving kind of a step-by-step to do in order to actually create an easy CWL in order for them to access this. So people who, for example, when I showcase this to the ministry, or when I'm showcasing this to people who are in different districts who have no affiliation or access to UBC can still go through that process. It takes a couple of more minutes, but because I want the analytics and I really want to know who is accessing the manual, it's just an excellent way for me to know. So they go through the Canvas process by creating a small, creating an account and then being able to use it. So it's been really, really great. So again, shout outs to Eduardo for his assistance on this for sure. I guess, I don't know if he's here, but yeah, thank you so much. So I guess
I just wanted to add about in order for the user to access the Articulate, we could only embed a link that then opens out into Articulate. So with the limitation there, we're not able to embed the entire Articulate or anything from Articulate into Catalog. So that may come across as a limitation, but it is one click away.
Yeah.
And it takes you straight into the modules. And we didn't add each module at a link there, just one link that takes you to the Articulate.
To the entire thing. Oh, great. Nice.
Okay, Gabrielle?
Hi. Yes, I've just been very happily clicking through this resource. It's like really beautifully put together. And I'm excited to hear that there's more development coming with more content. So that's really cool. I really appreciated how you mentioned, like, you've really tried to make it specific to a Canadian context. But is there any intention on sort of expanding this beyond Canada? Because I think that this is something that could be really utilized in, like globally. I mean, the resources and the experiences are going to be, are the experiences of refugees globally. And I could see this being really useful in a lot of contexts outside of Canada. Is there an intention to do that as well?
The intention is to get it as wide of an audience as possible. As I mentioned, there's over 30 conflicts in the world, which means all the surrounding countries that are receiving people fleeing from war and conflict are having to deal with these sort of things. In order to expand it to that level, we do have to also consider who we're showcasing, how much we're showcasing, and the data keeps changing. So the information that I have provided on this resource, I've tried to be, as I mentioned, as general, but also as, direct as I possibly can be. And it's very difficult because depending on where students are coming from, they might have different needs. They have different gaps in their knowledge. They have sometimes not that they have too many gaps, but they have too many curriculums. They've been, jumping around from country to country or place to place, and it becomes very difficult to then be a host country. The other issue is also many people who become refugees are living on the borders in like tent towns sometimes, and there are no schools, there are no teachers to make use of this resource, for example, immediately. But for host countries where they're coming to resettle for longer periods of time, I think this would be an excellent resource for them. But again, it would depend on what the resources for those countries and those first spaces are. Like for us, we generally look to our Ministry of Education for policy. We look for Ministry of Education for resources or districts to provide this to us. Unfortunately, there's not really much in the Canadian context. So my hope is right now to really focus on British Columbia as our main place and then expand this nationally. I would love to have an international forum for this. I think could be really, really great. I think the intention is definitely there. I have an amazing team in the LDDI to support this, and I think we can do a lot with it, but this is the start for sure. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Natasha. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for this wonderful presentation. Really great work. I think we all have the ideas about how you can expand on it. so I have a similar question. And I know there is so much work around refugees and immigrants and people moving from leaving their places and things. But we have a lot of conversations lately about climate change and sustainability and all of that. And we'll touch on some of the presentations, we'll touch on that area as well. And I'm just wondering whether you consider doing something about climate refugees, right? And I know it's a completely different, but it's still equally traumatic experience, whatever the reason is. So that's my question.
That's an excellent question, Natasha. Thank you so much for posing it. In my books, those who escape from crises like climate crises are considered refugees. However, in the international definition of refugees, they are not included, which makes it very, very difficult to, again, it becomes another barrier in order to provide resources and to support these people on a humanitarian level. And so what I would say is, even when you read the country profiles, you will see that these countries, although they are suffering from war and the people are being displaced, that they are also suffering from climate crisis, right? So there are droughts that are happening in the same countries. And for example, in the case of Afghanistan, we have 40 years of war. There's also been drought. There's also been famine. Recently, there was an earthquake. There were, I believe, 8 earthquakes within a span of 10 days on a Richter of over 6-point magnitude. So that is very, very extreme, right? That's people's homes have collapsed. They are now internally displaced. And there's so much to say about that. But I do agree with you that those issues are merging. And they're becoming more and more evident to the international community. And we're having it even here, right? We had forest fires that caused people to be evacuated, and they became internally displaced too. So yes, it is a growing issue. It's a major issue in the world, and I do agree that refugees are being created from climate change, and it is talked about a little bit in the content, although it is not the focus. Because the focus of the content is really how can we help our teachers here with the knowledge and understanding and the strategies and techniques and resources to help the students once they arrive here. So it is spoken about, but it's the highlight is really to support the teachers. And I look forward to, if there are places within this resource or even creating another resource that's specific to climate crisis responses, I would be happy to continue that conversation with you and the team, of course.
Thank you.
So we have a question in the chat. And Ellison asked, what are the next steps in the development of this resource?
Okay, so the next step. So right now it's being piloted, as I mentioned, all across British Columbia, the Lower Mainland. People in the districts have access to this. I'm workshopping this in various schools and districts. And so by the end of February, we will gather again and we will look at the resource and look at the feedback that we've received, because there is a feedback Qualtrics survey for people to take and look at that response. We will update the manual to meet the responses from the teachers, the educators who are the primary hosts of this, or like people who are receiving this. And then once we make those changes, of course, the idea is that we might also be working with the professional development program in the faculty to provide this as a resource for teachers. I might have the acronym wrong. Is it ECPD or EPPC? Sorry, I don't know the correct acronym, but you know who I'm talking about. But we will be working with them to perhaps make this as an online course for people to access from across British Columbia. And also I am in talks with the Ministry of Education to see if they can host this on their website, even if it's through an external kind of UBC, like they have to come through UBC to get access to this, that they host it on their website so that more teachers have access to it. So that's kind of where we're at, next few steps, more immediate steps, I guess.
Great, thank you. Mariam, she has her hand up for quite some
Hi,
time.
thank you for
It's a
this
virtual
amazing
hand and not your
resource.
actual hand.
So my question was, like, since you talked about feedback, I'm curious whether you have received feedback and then tailored the resource based on that feedback. I'm curious about what the feedback was and how did you tailor this resource? And also I was wondering whether there's a forum where teachers using this resource can exchange their ideas, because I think while they are going over this resource, there are lots of reflections, I don't know, probably shared experiences, stories, something like a practice community, I don't know, for teachers. And Yeah, so
Yeah, so the first question with regards to, or maybe I should, oh, sorry, should I go to the second question or the first question, which are both very important. Maybe I'll address the second question first with regards to a forum. So right now we don't have a forum on the website. I mean, it's easy through Canvas to create a forum, a discussion forum where people can come in and share their ideas. There is a part of me that's a little bit hesitant to open that, because I feel like then there also has to be someone to monitor that, to monitor the content, to monitor what is being said. We want to make sure that it's a respectful space, that it's a space of engagement and growth and development, and not something that is regressive. That is one of my main concerns. And then we would have to have someone to do that. With regards to the feedback from what I have seen and heard has been absolutely positive. Everyone has loved the interactive nature of this, to whom I owe the LDDI, particularly Jamilee and Kalisa, for creating that bit of the resource. Jamilee created like the interactive questions and games that are related to that. And I'm very, very happy that all the teachers who I know, who I have directly workshopped this with, have been very, very happy with that bit in particular, that it is so interactive. And obviously the work in terms of bringing in the images and embedding keywords, key terms, hyperlinks, that was all done by Kalisa. And again, teachers are really finding it useful and easy to access. So the easier it is for them to access, the easier for them to get the information, the more likely they're going to continue to use it. So I'm greatly indebted to these folks. And if they have anything to add in terms of the feedback or creating a forum for discussion, I'll leave it to them to respond to that.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Sorry, Faiza. I was just going to add quickly. I know we're at 12:30, but
Yes.
just in terms of the survey responses to date, we checked last week, there are about 74 responses. In terms of like recommending the resource and how useful and informative the resource was, majority, very close to all, had said that they strongly agree that they would recommend it and that it was a wonderful resource. It was equally in parts informational, and they appreciated the activities, the audio visuals. They found the design to be high quality, and compared to other similar online educational resources, they rated this either much better or better, which was great. And in terms of the content and the extensiveness of the resource, 66% had said that this was like, they couldn't have asked for anything more. So we must applaud Sofia for the amazing content that she did create and her vision for this. And yeah, so far the feedback has been exceptional.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for presenting today. And I think there is now the audience would also be a means to spread the word around. And I think it was very valuable. We'll post the survey link in the chat. So how did you find this presentation? Please share your comments with us.